All right, Jade.
Hi.
Jade, where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally?
Born and raised in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Wow, tell me about that.
Well, I grew up pretty white trash. My old house was built on a dump from the 1800s, and I lived next to the trailer parks. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
What was your family like?
At first, when I was young, it was like super cool. I grew up pretty normal activities, but turns out mental illness runs in the family, and my parents are avid drug users, and they have been most of my life. So,
How'd that affect your childhood?
well, when I was younger, my father worked, and I don't know, things were normal until like 8, and then the opioid pandemic crisis hit my home, and my dad would like doctor shop and get really fucked up, and they stopped kind of paying attention, and they sold a bunch of things, and we were really poor. And my dad lost his job. Well, he didn't lose it, but he ended up getting on like welfare because he couldn't work anymore. So the government just paid us ever since. My mom never had a job, and I had no idea until I got older, but she was dope sick a lot of the time, and it was just really chaotic not having money and having drug users for parents.
How would you describe your childhood in
Um,
general?
Sad. It was really sad. I got picked on a lot. I didn't know I was super poor until I was older, which kind of sucked. Um, I was just like a weird kid, and I don't know, like my parents didn't care. Like as long as we looked good on the outside, it didn't really matter how things were at home. Like my grandmother always bought us clothes and took us, me and my half brother, like shopping, so we looked good, but it was always really bad. Um, it wasn't like just, oh, my parents are smoking weed and drinking. It was like my dad's doing oxys and my mom sharing them, and my parents would like go on little weekend vacations and like go do meth in motels and shit like that, and leave me in not the best care.
So it
So
sounds like a lot of neglect.
there was a lot, and a lot of emotional neglect and stuff like that. It's not like they ever hit me or abused me or anything like that, but they just didn't, like, they didn't even teach me how to tie my shoes. Like, that's something I learned how to do when I was in fourth grade. Like, I taught myself a lot of things because they just didn't care to. Well, it's not that they didn't care, they just couldn't because they were in their own problems.
Finish high school?
Absolutely, I did. And then I did some college, but life's hard when you don't have a foundation, so you kind of have to make one for yourself.
You needed to support yourself
I did.
early on.
I did. I started hustling when I was like 13. I just like knew a bunch of drug dealers, and they would like set me up, and I would just go sell drugs to like all of my peers. I was always just like a bad little kid after, middle school, because I was like, fuck it. I needed to make money. It's not like my parents cared. The school sure as fuck did not care. Or they would have stepped in a lot sooner. You know what I mean?
You feel like the lack of discipline or the freedom that your childhood, your parents gave you was the reason that you took to sex work?
Um, I think I took to sex work because I was always intrigued. Like, I grew up, and my aunt was always one of my big role models, and she was like a Playboy golfer, or she would work events as a model. And like, sexuality was always just like an open, big thing at a young age. So I was like, she looks like she's having a lot of fun, and she's pretty, and she lives a good life. I was like, that's exactly what I want for myself. And like, you know, my era growing up, because I'm 26 now, like Britney Spears was a huge thing, Christina Aguilera, like lots of sexuality on the TV. And I was like, me too. But I was an ugly kid, so it like took a while for me to be comfortable and confident to do it.
When did you start, and how did you start?
I started when I was 20 years old. I ended up quitting my job. I was working overnights at a Village Inn. So I was working like 12-hour shifts just to make like $200. And I knew I was going through like a manic panic episode or something because I shaved my head recently. Like I always wanted to shave my head. So I shaved my head, quit my fucking job, and I was like, you know what? I know a couple strippers. I was like, let me just get a hold of them. So I walked out of my job the next day. I called a club and I went and I auditioned, and then I spent my last $200 on shoes, a wig, and just like some lingerie.
You started making money.
I did. My first night I made like 500, and my second night was Valentine's Day, and I walked out with like 800. So I made over $1,000 in like 2 days, and I was like, okay, I could do this.
There's no turning back after that?
No, but it was like, it was super easy for me. Like I always wanted to be desired because I was an ugly kid, and I always had like movement and flow. Like I was double jointed, and I was just like, had a natural rhythm. And so it kind of just fit, especially being like a degenerate. Like that's where they go. And especially in Nebraska, like everything's run down. There's like not a super nice strip club. They're like on the side of a highway in like a warehouse type shit.
That's kind of where they are, everywhere though.
Yeah, like they are run down. But farmers' money, it's good shit.
And you've tried other types of sex work as well?
Yeah, I would say like later on in my journey, like I got more comfortable. Like my first 5 years, I was strictly like a stripper, and I couldn't believe that people were like doing more for money, and like people had sugar daddies. I was like so disgusted and naive when I was young. And then I started like traveling, and I met so many women that I idolized just because they're the ones making the most money, and you learn things from them, and you learn that like having a sugar daddy makes you consistent money more often than just finding random people at the strip club. And then you move on from that and you go to different regions, and you're like, oh shit, this is a brothel. And you're like, am I gonna do this or am I not gonna do this? And then somebody puts like a couple thousand in your face for the first time, and you're like, oh, you're gonna pay me that much for like an hour of my time in a club? I was like, okay. So I did it. I started. And it was weird. Like the first time I did it, I was like in Miami. I was with a couple and a Cuban girl, and she's like, hey, we want you to join us for our VIP. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like standard. Women usually like me. I figured that out. And so I go back, and she's like, just entertain the wife. And I look over, and the husband is fucking the other girl. And I'm like, oh, we do that here. And so that was my first like experience, and like nobody stopped it. Like there's cameras in the room, but like some of them don't even record.
There's a lot of strip clubs will have this going on.
They know exactly what's going on. You just pay them their cut, and they're good.
But the girls that I've interviewed, a lot of them will tell me, well, I don't do that.
Oh no, absolutely. I absolutely do that. I mean, it's just like, it's part of it, you know? If you're gonna really be in sex work, then you gotta own it. Because there's no point in being ashamed of it. Like, who else is getting paid thousands of dollars for 30 minutes? You know what I mean? You just have to have like the class and the skill. Like the height you hold yourself at is the standard you're gonna be presented at. So it's like a whole spiel. Like you don't just become a good sex worker overnight. It takes a really long time. And I know women in their 30s who are doing the best they've ever done and making the easiest money they've ever made.
Probably get wiser as they go.
Yeah. And you just have to
experience.
like keep yourself away from certain groups of people because it will suck you in. Like, drugs are a huge thing. Like, my first year of stripping, I put myself through rehab because I finally made enough money and I realized I was going down a really bad path, and I didn't want to do that.
It seems like drugs will derail everything, even a stripper's career.
Oh yeah, and they're so common because who goes to a strip club? Drug dealers. Why? Because people want drugs there. It's like its own underground nightlife that people just look over. They're like, oh, it's a bachelor party. Like, let's go to the strip club. It's like, no, this is real life for a lot of people.
What's the secret to finding and keeping a sugar daddy?
Okay, well, first off, you cannot be yourself. Well, you can at some point. You choose what you want to show somebody. And
First off, not any guy can be a good sugar daddy, right?
oh no, they have to like prove it. So first off, you like maybe in the club, or they have like websites for it, but that's a little iffy. So like you find a good one in the club, usually an older gentleman. You always look for people in like suits, or maybe you go to the awkward guy because he just doesn't get that interaction that he wants with the lady. And so you provide that. Like, when you have a sugar daddy, you need to give them what they're seeking. And not every time is it sex. Like, some people are just emotionally, like, they lack that connection and they just want to be seen and heard and maybe cuddled. So you just sought out a weird guy or a rich looking guy and you sit down and you talk to them about their life.
Do you drop hints about the fact that you can't pay your rent this month or things like that?
No, it's never that, because they know I'm highly sought after. So they want to maybe treat me better than anyone else does, so I treat them better. And I don't know, it's kind of like a game. Like, I think if you have to know high class things and you have to be very knowledgeable to relate to these men. Like, I don't know, some are farmers, but others are, lawyers, or they do crypto. I had to learn all about crypto and Bitcoin and all this other shit when it came out so I could talk to sugar daddies, because I had no idea. Or NFTs. Oh, that was a terrible time to be in the strip club. I hated hearing about NFTs all the time and cryptocurrency. But you have to sit there and you have to be involved and you have to actually pick up on things.
So you worked mostly in Nebraska early on in your career?
I stripped in Nebraska for 5 years. No, I'm lying. Probably, I started traveling after 3. And then I went to like North Dakota and then Texas, Arizona. But some places you have to have licenses. So you have to like look into it and look it up before you go.
You can't just show up.
Yeah, because in some places they do like background checks and they see if you have a record of felonies or prostitution, because a lot of clubs won't hire you if you have that on your record.
Where do you live now?
I live in South Florida, but I have spent the summer in Nebraska because I'm moving back there.
You're going to go back to Nebraska
Fuck yes.
after Southern Florida.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like when you stay too long in one place, like, I don't want to push my career longer than it needs to go down there. It's very fast paced, and I'm not gonna lie, like, stripping up north is way easier money and people are way more respectful. Like, down south, it's a lot of BBLs and people do a lot more for a lot less. And if, again, you hold yourself to that standard, it's just not worth it.
The Midwest is a little less, not as fast.
It's not as fast paced. It's really like chill, and farmers are out there, so there's seasons everywhere. So it's good to travel during seasons, like go way up north during pheasant season or tax season, because the amount of men there is to women, and even beautiful, like extravagant women, is insane. So what do? They come and spend their money, and you don't even have to, suck their dick or anything. You get a little bag.
Are you saying there's a lot of girls like there aren't many girls like you in Nebraska?
No, there is. And they're some of my dearest friends. And I've never found women like them. So it's good to keep, your family and people close.
how does this lifestyle affect you emotionally?
Um, so ever since I put myself in rehab at like 20 years old, I've always consistently had a therapist. I've always made sure that I'm emotionally okay. Even from a younger age, I do have a big disconnect because of my mental illnesses. So stripping is not for everyone, but it's like a character. So if you can disassociate from your normal person in your real life, then you're gonna do better in stripping.
You compartmentalize it.
Yeah, so I could be having the worst day and I'll be like, fuck it. I'm gonna go to work and I'm gonna make like 800 or so dollars and I'm probably gonna feel better as myself if I do that. Because I mean, being sad and poor isn't as fun as being sad and rich.
What does your therapist think of your
Um,
career?
It's so crazy to me because I've had a couple different therapists. So whenever I move regions or anything like that, I just switch it up. Um, my therapists tell me I'm really smart. And my therapists have actually, because I've had drug issues and I've been honest about them. And I'm like, hey, like I'm taking benzos to feel better and get through my work day. And they're like, well, you can't just stop. Like, you can't just stop. So they'll know about my drug use, they'll know about my money, because I always pay them in cash too. And they're like, well, if you don't go to work, you can't pay your bills. And I'm like, you're right. So I need to come to you to handle all my emotional shit so I can be my best self and do what I have to do.
When you say mental illness runs in your family, so how has it affected you? Are you bipolar or borderline?
I'm diagnosed bipolar, manic depressive, anxiety, just a bunch of things, PTSD, but I grew up and my father was very much so bipolar. My mom is just like not there. And so, I don't know, watching them be who they are and develop over time has made me probably put myself in overdrive so I don't end up that way. And I feel like that's why I'm constantly learning and pushing myself to be better because I still support them sometimes and give them money even though they kind of suck. But it's like that's my family, and to be the one to break the generational curses and things like that's a responsibility. So I took that on.
Do you have friends?
I do. I have great friends.
It's great. It's important, right?
Yeah, and I always so they say the 5 people you keep around in your closest circle reflects who you are. So all of my friends go to like therapy or have families and are strong women too, or men.
What have you learned about men from doing all these different forms of sex work? You also are on OnlyFans too, right?
I am on OnlyFans. I have learned, this is probably gonna ruin my career, but I have learned that if you can make yourself to what they want, they'll give you exactly what you want, which is shitty, but men are really easy to figure out. Like, you just have to pay attention to mannerisms and the things they say and make them feel good. And it's like, you'll get what you want. I'm not saying they're easy. I've met a lot of brilliant, smart men that have vices. And I know the strip club or paying for my porn online or taking me out to dinner. It's like a vice and it's a little high for them. So I'll be their drug of choice. I don't care.
Does it impact your self-worth being treated like an object?
I would say I spent so much of my life being objectified from a young age.
Just used to it.
I am. So it's like, am I going to be sad about it or am I going to use it to my advantage? Because I don't really detain my self-worth to what I've had to do to get to where I am because I am so smart and I am so, I don't want to say I'm different than a lot of sex workers because I'm not. Like, when we're all in the same building, like the girl who's sucking dick for $40, I'm the same as her. She's my mutual. Like, we're in the same building. I can't think I'm better than her. But when I leave and I take care of myself the way I do, that's where my self-worth is.
Have you been in love before?
Once. Once. And it was terrible.
How old are you?
I am 26.
26. Do you see love as a transactional interaction?
No, but I
Like
do.
you're offering a man your female attractiveness, your sexuality, and he's providing some security, financial security.
I would say the one time I was in love was with an addict, and I spent 2 years doing that, and it was definitely a product of my daddy issues and my childhood, and I understood that. And so I don't date or anything like that, and I know that when I want to settle down, I want to have a partner. And I do not want monogamy. Monogamy was a thing created a long time ago by people who wanted to do marriage and taxes and all of that. It's just not super realistic to be with somebody and be like, you only have eyes for me, it's all about me. You can't have feelings for other people or do what you want. But marriage is great for taxes and like paperwork. It's good on paper, but it's not super realistic, especially in this day and age when you have things like OnlyFans, strip clubs, and like sex sells. A lot of people are in sex work now more than ever.
Yeah, it seems like OnlyFans is very popular.
Especially after the pandemic, because nobody could go outside and people are like, maybe I can sell pictures of my feet and pay my rent.
Do you believe in karma?
Absolutely.
How does karma play out in your life?
I would say I get very lucky. I don't know what I did. And I always just try to make the right decision.
You seem very positive.
You have to be.
No, you don't. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, a lot of people aren't.
I mean, I would say I'm very positive, but I'm very rational. I can be very pessimistic and critical about a lot of things. I don't agree with everyone, and I'm very opinionated because I read a lot. I'm a know-it-all. That's not for everyone, but it's just kind of what I go by. And there's like things like I'm spiritual, so obviously I believe in like, you know, karma, or the energy you give is the energy you're going to receive. So I don't believe in like gossiping or being, you know, I live by my standard of rules, and I never am like down on other people or bring them down.
It builds up your self-esteem, I assume.
No, it just, to be a good person, it's
No, I'm just
not.
saying, being a stripper, being an object of so many men.
See, what's weird though is like a lot of my clientele is couples or even women.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I don't know why or how. I guess I give off a big lesbian vibe, perhaps. But yeah, no. And it doesn't, because I was ugly for a really long time. So I'm super humbled. Like I used to get beat up for being too skinny, because I was malnourished, or just having short hair. I wore headgear. People would bark at me in the hallways. I did not peak until my 20s, which I'm very thankful for, because anyone who peaked in high school is probably not peaking now. You know what I mean? So I also feel like the older you get, the wiser you are, the more knowledge and beauty you have. So it's like not about looks. It's about, I don't know, what you are inside reflects on the outside. So maybe I happen to be very beautiful, but that's just because I'm a beautiful person.
It's a great attitude.
It's a good one to have. Got me far.
If you had your life to live all over again, what would you have done differently?
I would have started sex work sooner. I'm not even gonna lie. If I started when I was like 18, I probably would be a lot more advanced than where I'm at now, even though I've been doing it for 7 years. Obviously, I've made up some time.
So you see sex work, is your view of it is that it's been very good to you.
Yeah, because when you make the money, you can either, because I never had money. So when I had the opportunity to have money, I invested it in myself versus other people who just like go shopping, go on trips all the time. Like I really wanted to work on myself because I never had that opportunity.
How big a part did your childhood, where your family was poor, play a part in you taking this direction where you can make really solid money?
A lot. when you watch your family have nothing or constantly just like have to sell things or be down because they don't have money and they're too prideful to admit and ask for help, it just, I don't know. I know I never wanted to end up like that. I never wanted to end up relying on anyone else to fix my problems.
Are you lonely?
Sometimes. I would say the more deeper I got involved in online sex work, I became extremely lonely, but I kind of took a step back from that. And when I just dance, I have the opportunity to be around people with similar views, and I get to take more time for myself because online sex work is so much more difficult than people would imagine.
Really?
hmm
What advice would you give to a girl who's considering doing some of these career choices you've taken on?
I would just say be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself, take care of yourself, and treat yourself the way you want others to treat you. Um, don't make friends in the strip club. I got very lucky, and that was over years of developing relationships. But people will put you in really bad situations when you put your trust in the wrong people. Go to work, make your money, stay out of the bullshit, and live your life and treat it like a job. I feel like a lot of people get wrapped up with being at the club every day, that they don't, that's their center point of life, is going to the club, getting drunk with their friends, doing their little blow bag in the bathroom, and then, you know, leaving and doing it all over again the next day. It's not that you have to have an end game, but you have to set yourself up for the life you want to live. And you have to be very on top of that, or you will get lost. It is very easy to get lost.
Do you use alcohol or drugs or anything to get in the mood to?
I used to a lot of the time. I notice now recently that I've gotten older and I kind of just like, I have to dumb myself down a little bit to relate to people because I am super educated. Nobody likes to know it all at the club. So I have like a couple drinks and that's about it. I used to use drugs. Like my first night stripping, I don't even remember my first stage set. I was so fucked off on Xanax. So it's like, I don't know. If you have to, do it. But if you don't, try not. Because I know a bunch of brilliant people who can do it sober. And you can.
You want to have kids?
I don't think I can.
Really?
I was pregnant one time. And the one and only time, I had an ectopic pregnancy. And it was just very scary for me. And I don't think having my own children is for me. But I love kids. If I could, I probably would, but also I'm getting older. You have to set yourself up for that. That's something you have to, well, hopefully plan for. I know people just be willy-nilly and get married at 20 and having children and then they end up divorced and all of that bad shit. Like it's something you really have to think about. And I know with the direction I took, I don't really think I can adopt kids or foster just because sex work, people are like, no.
Right.
But I don't know, if I could, in my older years, I would want to open or just fund a home and, you know, maybe be like a peer counselor or something like that. Because, yeah, I don't know, I love kids.
Jade, what would you say is the most important lesson you've learned?
In life?
In life or in the 7 years of doing sex work, either one.
The most important lesson I've learned. Everyone doesn't have your best intention, you know?
I hear that so often from so many different people.
Yeah, I don't know. It's make your money and go home. That's it. That's the number one lesson. Keep your inner self protected. Everyone does not have your best interest, and people, if you show them the slightest sign of vulnerability, they will take it and they will hold on to it. And you can end up in some super bad situations.
Every man for himself.
Yeah, literally. Well, you're an independent contractor, so it's like, take that and run with it. You are your own business, and you should run it that way.
And you're saving money.
Yeah, you have to. You have
No,
to.
a lot of girls don't.
Because like I also know myself, and I am bipolar, and I do get depressed, and I do have to dip into my savings because, you know, getting assaulted at work is a thing, and bad things do happen in those types of places. So if I need to take a month off because I'm so depressive, I need to have something to fall back on. You can't expect to make $1,000 every day, not even 500. And that's something people forget. It's not always going to be there. You could,
Tell me about being bipolar.
what about it? You know what I mean?
How does it manifest itself?
I don't even notice. Well, now I do since I'm super aware, but it's like I'm bipolar 1, so my episodes are really long. It's not like I'm just like up, down, up, down. It's like you're peaking right now. You're very manic. Everything's going great. You have so much energy. Life is making so much money. I'm so happy and outgoing. And then it's like, I can't get out of bed. I'm crying every day, or I feel no emotion. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to anyone, and I isolate. And that's my 2 moods. And so I used to be on medication, but I don't really like it. That's why I choose talk therapy, because it keeps me in check and it keeps me in line, and you have to do things like journal every day. You just have to be super self-aware if you're gonna be mentally ill. Okay? Like, or you're gonna end up, like I've been in the psych ward. I put myself in there. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Because nobody's gonna figure you out for you. That's your own personal responsibility. So I don't know, being bipolar can be scary, self-harm, things like that. But just getting older and like acknowledging it, I'm more comfortable and confident with being bipolar.
All right, Jade. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Best of luck to you.
Thanks.
Thanks.